What's going on, team? Proof here, and today I'm coming at you with something a little bit different. By extension of my recruiting reports for the new stuff from set 9, I wanted to go into what I call scout reports for the decks, the big, I guess big 5 or the main 5 decks that you can build from spikes as of GBT-09. And it's a way for me to go over decks and give people that may be interested in some of the different decks but don't know exactly where to start or what cards to include. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go through all the grades and I'm going to give what I call the core options, which are the things I feel you definitely need to have, and then some reserve options, kind of like your bench, kind of sort of, to where you can use it in addition, like add to the core options, just in case you don't fulfill your number requirement you feel is necessary, or you can use it as a way to supplement or exchange out with what I feel are in the core slots. So I want to start off with pure Dudley because it's one of the newest decks you can build because they fleshed out what you can do with Dudley from set 9, and hopefully it won't be too long because it's kind of like an introductory look at the different decks. And at the end, I'm going to go into what I call metrics, which are like different definitions for what I feel a deck can have and how I feel this particular deck stacks up in those particular metrics. So let's hop into it. Oop, there we go. And for the grade zeros, oh, there we go. Skipped one, kind of spoiler. For your core options, you want to have Dudley Little Road. Oh, I thought I switched that, but that's okay. Dudley Little Road says when your Vanguard with Dudley attacks, Soul Blast 1, and if you do, you can bind them and call it to an open circle. And if you have two rear guards with Dudley in his card name, he gets plus 3,000 to the end of turn or end of battle. I can't remember exactly which one. And I feel it's definitely something you want to have in a Dudley deck because of how strong it is, because Dudleys don't really do much with the soul early game. So this way you can potentially get 3 attacks going every turn with minimal investment, which helps the deck out in the early stages of the game. Even though it's not necessarily the strongest attacks, it's still a potential attack on your opponent, and I think it's really helpful. And 4, Silence Joker, because crit trigger and because it helps unflip for your potential Dudley turns. And 4, I put Tiara here just because I had it available on my images, but you can put in any heal of your choice. As for the reserves, 0 to 1 Mecha Trainer, you can use them as a starter alternatively to Dudley Little Road. I feel Dudley Little Road is good enough to use over Mecha Trainer in the Dudley deck because of what it can do. But if you feel that you want to have one, definitely add one. And then 0 to 8, insert your choice of draw trigger here. You can split up 4 and 4, take off 4 of them and split them up 2, 2, 2, 2, something like that. But you can use 8 of them in addition to it in case you feel the need to have the extra draw power. Or you can go 0 to 8 critical triggers if you feel the need to have the more crits available in your deck for later. Or you can mix and match them. You can go 8 crit, 4 draw, 6, 6. You have the flexibility there with the Dudley deck to do something like that. In the grade 1 slots, you got 4 Alma, which is the unflipped PG, 3 Acrobat Verity, which is the general stride fodder, 3 Dudley Daisy. She says during the battle phase, when she's placed on rear guard, if you have a Spike Brother Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 and give her plus 5 until the end of turn. She's good for your, she's good for your Caligula turns because Caligula only uses 1 counterblast. So if you happen to land Daisy, you can call her out. You can get her the plus 2 from Caligula. I think it's plus 2 or plus 3. I can't recall off the top of my head. We'll get to it. And then you can use her ability since it's the battle phase and get plus 5, which makes her for a handy booster or attacker if you land her. And she has Dudley in its name, so you can search her out with Dudley Jessica for later. And then 3 Dudley Jetter, which is the GB1 retire this guy. And when you're at the beginning of your ride phase, if you have a Vanguard with Dudley, you can retire him. And then if you do, the next time you stride into a Dudley, you can do it without paying the cost from hand. He's a really good target off of Jessica, because you call him out, gets +5 off of Jessica, and then the next turn you can retire him and then keep looping it until the game is over without investing it from your hand, which is really good. In your reserve slots, you can max out your Jetters, or you can max out your Dudley Daisies as well, in case you feel what you need to have there. I included Dudley Phantom because you can call him out with Jessica and he becomes an 11k booster, or technically a 15k booster because it gives the unit in front of him plus 4,000 power. So in case you want to give that extra push through power, might be good to have. I haven't been the biggest fan of Dudley Phantom, but it might have its place now because you can search him out with Jessica pretty easily. And then one Dudley Dan, because the Dudley deck in its pure form here has issues calling during the battle phase when you aren't on Caligula or Picaro. So if you're trying to push with Geronimo, it might be beneficial to you to have Dudley Dan available. So I want to include here as a reserve option for you. And then for the grade 2s, we got pretty straightforward lineup of 4 Mason, which can be your premier grade 2 ride, or an alternative grade 2 ride in Dudley Monty, which is a 10k vanilla, because since a lot of decks now have really easy 9k attackers that like to go at your Vanguard, if you're going first, you can ride Monty instead of Mason and put Mason to the side and have a 10k blocker there so you can help defend yourself for later. And then 4 Dudley Ingram, which is what you want to see / call on your stride turns, because it can get massive power quickly when you burst it out through Picaro or Caligula. They're really good to have because it gets +3 for every Dudley that comes out with it, or in addition to it while he's on the field. And then for your reserves, I included, you can put in 0 to 2 Dudley Douglas here. I forgot to add in the 4th Monty. You can always add in that 4th Monty as well, because in case you want to have straight 4 in your, or 12 grade 2s in your grade 2 lineup, you can add in that 4th Monty as well. Or alternatively, you can go with Dudley Douglas, which is the grade 2 version of Daisy. So if you call him out with Caligula, you get the boost from Caligula, and then you get the 5k boost from his skill, and all of a sudden you have a 16, 17k attacker with the booster not included, which is good. And these last 2 options kind of take you away from a pure Dudley focus, but they're pretty good options to have. With Misery, it gives you a way to call out during the battle phase, an additional way to call out during the battle phase. She can't be searched out with Caligula, which is a slight hindrance, but that's why you only have 0 to 2. So it comes out if you need it to. And the same with Chemist, because Chemist with Misery makes a good combo to have on your Geronimo turn. It doesn't combo with Turbo Rappler, but if you feel that's a Vanguard you don't want to focus on, you can always go the route with having Misery and Chemist there. And then for your grade 3s, I put Dudley Jessica as the 4 of and Turbo Rappler as the 3 of. You can flip-flop them if you need to, but Jessica might be your premier ride because she is less, or she helps with your defensive capabilities because of her GB2, and you have an easy way to get that now through Dudley Caligula. She doesn't play well with Dudley Caligula unless you have minimal units on the board, but you can manipulate that into your favor with smart gameplay. And then Turbo Rappler is your push, your stride you want to use to push for damage at the late game, because Turbo Rappler plus Geronimo gives all your Dudleys attacking plus 10k power, which is good for trying to get you over the hump against some decks. And then in your reserve slots, you can finish out Turbo Rappler, max them out, or you can go with Jelly Beans, which searches out your grade 2 or less Dudley units. So if you have him in hand when you go first, you can use his skill to reveal him, pull him to the top, and then search out your Monties or your Dudley Masons for your optimal grade 2 ride, and then shuffle up your deck and put them back into the deck. That made no sense. You can put him back to deck shuffle and then redistribute him back into the deck for later. Or you can go with Dudley Moses here. That's supposed to be a 2, not a 1. I forgot to fix that by mistake. Because with all the if the deck goes into the late game, you might be low on deck. And so you can ride Moses here. And since you already have the mate with the 10k vanilla, you can just put the triggers back into your deck and then try to get over the hump that way with a good Legion turn. It's a vanilla Legion, but it has power comparable to a Stride while putting triggers back into your deck, so it might be worthwhile for the future. And then for your Strides, for your core Strides, I definitely feel 4 Geronimo. I could have said 2, but I feel like 4 is what you want to have, so I would recommend getting 4. 2 Dudley Caligula. I don't think you need more than 2 of them. He's a good first Stride, but beyond first Stride, Dudley or Dirty Picaro becomes infinitely more better. Excuse me. You have to counterblast 1 more, but you had to put in 1 less card into your soul. So I feel that's the proper trade-off, especially when it's late in the game and you need to recover quickly. You can use Picaro if you have 1 card in hand. You can use them out. You can use Picaro, put 1 card in, and then spit out a board versus being stuck between having to put in 2 cards with Caligula. And then 1 Flash Bruce, because if you feel that Caligula isn't a worthwhile first Stride because you have a full field, or you don't want to burn a Geronimo turn, you can go into Flash Bruce here and you can pressure your opponent with the on hit and then call out something that you can use to boost up your Ingrams, or you can get a 19k attacker off of Dudley Douglas if you use him, so give you a little more range of flexibility there. And then for the remaining Strides, you got 1 Sea Breeze because I feel it's necessary, at least 2 Airy because she's the easiest G guard to use, 1 Max at minimum because I feel he's easier to use with Dudley because your units are more likely to stick around, and 1 Dismal because with the likes of Narukami and Dementia Police probably getting more popularity in the future, it might be good to keep it around. And I feel it's good for protecting one of your key units in the front row, like your Dudley, like your Ingrams or your Miseries if you use her, or things like that. In the reserve slot, you can put in that second Picaro. I would recommend having 2 Picaro, but if you can't get a second one, definitely want to have at least 1 of them. Maybe you want to put in another Flash Bruce. Maybe you want to add another Airy. I'm debating if you want to have another Max even with Dudley. I feel 1 is enough, but if you feel a second one is needed, even though I didn't include it here, definitely think about it and see if it's necessary for you to have 1. And then for your other reserves, you can put in 2 Supernova. Even though you don't have any charge units here to take advantage of it, he offers a free flip regardless because you don't have to charge anything with it. And if you use Lyre Lips, it gives you a means to use Lyre Lips because you can shove it into the soul, call something back out. Or that made no sense. You can shove it into the soul, draw a card, not call something back out. That'd be incredible. 0 to 1 Tiger Centurion. Even though there's no charge units again, the plus 2,000 to 4 of your units might be relevant because you have the 10k vanilla. So that if you have a 10k vanilla plus a 7k column, if you use Tiger Centurion, that becomes a 21k column for 1 counterblast, which is really good. Blah, which is pretty good. So something that you might want to consider as well. And then 1 Screw. Just because if you don't like Max and how it operates, you can have a more guaranteed plus 10k G guard out of Screw. And then for the metrics, I wanted to define what those metrics are real quick. And thanks to the help from people off the Reddit for giving me some of these definitions, all of these definitions. So an attack can be a measure of 3 things, like meaningful attack bonuses, attacking multiple targets at once, or attacking multiple times in a turn, and guard restricting. And I chose to say does not factor in trigger lineup because any deck can have good attack power if you have 12 critical triggers, but I wanted to look at the deck's innate ability to have good attacking power and a good finishing power. Defense can be just how the deck can manage and survive, either by drawing cards, gaining power, locking even though it's not relevant for spikes, or interrupting your opponent's attacks. And endurance, I said, is how well the deck can play into the late game. Speed, a measure of how fast does the deck hit its strongest turn. And recovery, which is a measure of how well the deck can reestablish a hand or a field after your opponent does something devastating to your resources, such as blow it all up, make you discard your cards through like Nubatama, things like that. Having a guard for everything you down to your last card, how well can you bounce back from that? And so with that, I did it off a value of 1 to 5 stars, kind of like old Beyblade season 1 shout outs. And so here's what I have for the metrics. I said attack for this deck is 3 out of 5 because you can have good power through the likes of Caligula and Turbo Lappler, but the deck can kind of struggle with finishing off your opponent because against decks that gain advantage, you may not have enough sustainable pressure or enough big burst potential to finish them off. Defense, I gave a 3 out of 5 as well because if you're on Dudley Jessica, her plus 2,000 power can be relevant against some popular decks out there. Even just that extra plus 2k can did I say 3k last time? I meant 2k if I did. That plus 2k can turn columns into awkward numbers for your opponent because usually people try to set up 16s or increments of 5 from there. So that extra 2k can help give relevance to your draw trigger for making a 16k column a 5k guard. And that's why I feel I put it more towards a 3 out of 5. Endurance, I feel the deck is the most longest lasting Spike Brothers deck out there because it plays a more middle ground game than a more offensive lean and burst deck as some of the other decks do. So that's why I give it 3.5 stars there. Speed, it's not, you can get off to an aggressive start because of Little Road, but in terms of getting to where you want to be, which is finishing off your opponent with a Geronimo or a Turbo Lappler turn, it takes a little while to get there because by extension of its attacking power, you may not be able to push your opponent to that point to where it will finish them off at that moment in time, if that made any sense at all. And recovery, thanks to a Caligula for exchanging 2 cards in hand for 3 cards on the board potentially, or with Picaro for exchanging 1 card in hand for up to 5 cards on the field, I give it really good recovery. I give it 3 out of 5 there. And if you guys have your own idea of how the metrics go, like, I would definitely love to hear your opinions because this is just my take on it from my experience with the deck itself. And there's always room for debate. I can always revisit this and always edit it up later. And this actually went on longer than I thought it was. It seems to be a pattern with me. But I hope this gives you a good look at the Dudley deck and what I feel you need to have and things you can think about if you want to venture into this particular deck itself. And if you enjoyed this, let me know. I want to do these for the other 4 decks that are out there. But if you have ideas for me to change it up for later, I'd definitely love to hear your thoughts on it. And until next time, peace. Be easy.